Real people, real confessions, the stories you weren't supposed to hear. Welcome to Beyond Reddit Stories. I've been living a double life for 12 years. And no one knows, not my wife, not my kids, not my friends, not even my therapist. During the day, I'm just your average guy. I work a quiet office job in downtown Milwaukee, commute home before 6, mow the lawn on Sundays, wave to the neighbors. I show up on time, smile when I need to, and never do anything that would make anyone look at me twice. I'm the kind of person people forget in a room, and honestly, I used to be okay with that. But at night, I become someone else. Not in some dissociative or schizophrenic way. I'm fully aware of what I do. I created him, piece by piece. I gave him a different name, a different background, different interests, even a separate source of income. He's real. He's not a fantasy or an escape. He lives, just like I do. Just parallel. It started off harmless enough. A fake username on a forum, a few posts, a few late-night chats, but it grew, fast, he grew. And before I realized it, I had built an entire second life, one that no one in my real life could ever know about. Because if they did, it would all fall apart. I would lose my job, my marriage, my children's respect. Everything I've spent my entire adult life building, all of it, gone. And here's the craziest part. I'm not a criminal. I haven't broken any laws. I haven't cheated. I haven't stolen. But if anyone found out what I've been doing, they'd never see me the same again. Hell, I wouldn't see myself the same again. For 12 years, I've balanced both lives, carefully, strategically, never mixing the two, until one day they collided. It was one text message, one person, one unexpected moment that changed everything. And I realized I couldn't keep lying anymore. This is the story of how I built that second life, how I almost lost both, and how I came back from it. If you've ever felt like you're pretending to be someone you're not, if you've ever wondered what it means to be truly seen, then maybe you'll understand why I did it. 12 years ago, I was 33 years old. At the time, I thought I had everything a man could want. A steady job, a wife who loved me, a 2-bedroom house on a quiet street with a maple tree out front that turned bright red every fall. We had just had our first child, a boy. His name was Owen. And I remember thinking, during those long nights rocking him back and forth, that maybe this was it. Maybe this was what life was supposed to be, predictable, repetitive, safe. But somewhere underneath that comfort was something else. At work, I blended in. I wasn't the star. I wasn't the screw-up. I was the guy people forgot to CC on emails. My ideas weren't bad, just invisible. I wasn't disliked. I wasn't liked. I was tolerated, a reliable ghost. At home, it wasn't much different. My wife, Rachel, was a good woman, smart, kind, practical. But over time, our conversations became schedules, feedings, bills, groceries. She was tired. I was tired. Neither of us said it, but the truth sat there between us at night like a third person in the bed, one we both avoided. There wasn't a big fight, no cheating, no drama, just slow erosion. I started staying up later. She started falling asleep earlier. I'd sit in the living room in the dark, scrolling my phone while the dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. And I remember thinking, is this all there is? There's a silence that builds in a life like that. A silence no one talks about because it doesn't make headlines, but it eats at you, bite by bite. One night, out of boredom more than anything, I clicked on a link. It was a forum, just random threads. Anonymous users talking about things they couldn't say anywhere else. Confessions, fantasies, regrets. I didn't post at first, just watched, read, scrolled. Then I made a username, something simple, untraceable. I left a comment. Nothing personal, just mod, dipping my toe in, no one noticed. But for some reason, just seeing that comment up there, knowing it didn't have to be me, it felt like I could breathe a little. That was the first night in a long time I didn't feel invisible. It didn't start with some master plan. There wasn't some grand intention to lie or deceive or create an alter ego. I was just a man who felt small and tired and unseen. And the internet gave me a crack in the wall. That crack would become a doorway. That doorway would become a whole new room. and eventually, I'd forget which side I started on. It started slow, a username, a few replies, a thread or two late at night. Then came the messages, private, anonymous, conversations with strangers I'd never meet, who somehow felt more real than the people sitting across from me at dinner. I wasn't flirting, I wasn't trying to cheat. At least, that's what I told myself. But I was searching, craving, for what? I didn't know exactly. Validation, identity, just to be seen, I guess. One night, I posted something longer, a story, fiction, technically, a short piece about a man who fakes his own death and starts over in a new city, under a new name, nothing groundbreaking, but someone replied, then another, then a dozen. People liked it, they followed me, they asked for more. And in that moment, somewhere between a keyboard and a stranger's compliment, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. I felt alive. So I wrote more. A new piece every week, then every few days. Soon, I had a small audience, a little corner of the internet where I wasn't just some guy. I was interesting, I was wanted, I was somebody. And then, it escalated. One of my followers offered to pay for a custom story, said he ran a niche online magazine and was looking for contributors. He didn't care about credentials, he just liked the way I wrote. So I said yes. I set up a PayPal account under the username, bought a new prepaid phone, rented a P.O. box in a different zip code, and just like that, I wasn't anonymous anymore. I was him. My second life had an income stream, a mailing address, a phone number. I told Rachel I had started freelance work. Nothing major, just a few projects to bring in extra cash. She was thrilled. She said it was good to see me excited about something again. She had no idea. I began scheduling my life around this new identity. Late nights writing, weekend conferences, fiction workshops that didn't exist. I even started showing up to open mic readings under a fake name. Nobody recognized me. Nobody questioned it. I was careful, too careful. And here's the part I still struggle to explain. I didn't hate my real life. I loved my son. I loved my wife, in my own quiet way. But the man they saw, the man I had become in the daylight, felt like a photograph someone else had taken. Flat, frozen, fading at the edges. At night, I became color again. There were moments it almost came undone. Once, Rachel found the prepaid phone. I lied. Said it was for two-factor authentication for the freelance stuff. Another time, a woman from one of the readings messaged me during dinner, said she'd be at the next event and hoped he would be too. I deleted the message before my wife saw it, but my hands were shaking. I could feel the walls getting thinner. Then something changed. One of my stories went semi-viral, picked up by a bigger blog. They wanted to feature more, publish a collection. They wanted interviews, a photo. That was the first real challenge, because I couldn't give them me. Not the real me, not the face that showed up at parent-teacher conferences or birthday parties. That face couldn't exist in both worlds. So I hired a guy online, a college kid in New York who kind of matched the vibe I'd created. Paid him to do a Zoom interview in my place. Gave him a fake backstory to memorize. It worked. Somehow, it worked. And that should have been my cue to stop, to pull the plug, to get out while I still could. But instead, I kept going. Because by then, I had started to believe something dangerous. That maybe, just maybe, the second life wasn't the fake one. Maybe this was who I really was all along, and everything else, the mortgage, the small talk, the khakis and company picnics, was the disguise. That thought, that one seed of doubt, it changed everything. It didn't fall apart all at once, it never does. It started with one email, a name I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a message. You're not who you say you are. At first, I thought it was spam, a troll, maybe. I ignored it, deleted it. But the next day, another email came, then a DM, then a comment on a blog post that disappeared a few minutes later. Whoever it was, they knew, not everything, but enough. They knew the name I used wasn't real. They knew where I actually lived. They said they weren't looking for money. They just wanted to meet. I panicked. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I started locking the doors during the day, pulling the blinds shut like I was being hunted. And in a way, I was, not just by them, but by the truth I'd been dodging for over a decade. I replied, Finally, gave them a burner number, agreed to meet in public. We chose a coffee shop halfway between cities. I got there early. Every person who walked through the door made my heart lurch. Then he walked in. Young, maybe 23, 24, hoodie, backpack, eyes sharp like he'd been watching for a long time. He sat down without asking, looked at me and said, "You know, you're really not that hard to find." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. He pulled out his phone and showed me something. A screenshot. One of my earliest forum posts, tied to an old email address, one I hadn't used in years but had forgotten to delete. I thought I had covered my tracks. Turns out I missed one. One was enough. I asked him what he wanted. He just looked at me for a moment and said, "Nothing. I just wanted to see if you'd own up to it." Then he got up and left. Just like that. No blackmail, no threats, no money. He didn't want to ruin my life. He wanted to look me in the eye and see what guilt looked like. But the damage was done. Because now I knew the illusion wasn't airtight. The wall between my two lives had a crack, and something had already slipped through. I drove home that day and couldn't stop shaking. I looked at my son, now 10, growing up fast, and for the first time in years, I felt like a fraud in my own house. I couldn't do it anymore. So that night, I told Rachel, not everything, not the full scope, but enough. Enough to make her go completely silent. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just sat there. After a while, she said, "I thought you were cheating. I don't know if this is better or worse." She left the room, slept in the guest bed. The next morning, she packed a bag and took Owen to her sister's. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. And in that silence, everything unraveled. The blog that had published my work pulled it down when I couldn't verify my identity. The small fan base I had built, gone. The forum I used to haunt, banned. I sat in that empty house and asked myself the question I had been avoiding for years. Who the hell am I? Not the office drone, not the midnight writer, just a man, sitting in a quiet house, surrounded by the ruins of his own invention. It was then I started to remember things I had buried. Not memories, exactly, more like feelings. That hollow ache in my chest I used to wake up with as a kid. The way I used to lie little lies, harmless ones just to feel in control. The way I used to pretend to be other people, even when no one was watching. I finally made an appointment, therapy, for real this time, not to fix a problem, just to ask questions. And it turned out, there was a name for what I'd been doing. Not a full personality disorder, but something called maladaptive escapism. A coping mechanism, a survival response, a way to avoid feelings I didn't know how to process. Turns out, I had been doing it my whole life. I just got better at hiding it, until I couldn't. The truth is, I wasn't addicted to lying. I was addicted to being someone else. Because for so long, I didn't think the real me was worth knowing. But sitting in that therapist's office, week after week, peeling back the layers, I started to realize that maybe I didn't need a second life. What I needed was a first one I didn't have to run from. It didn't happen overnight. Nothing ever does. But slowly, piece by piece, I began to stitch myself back together. Rachel came home after 4 weeks. We didn't have a big talk, no dramatic confrontation, just quiet moments, dinner together, walking the dog, picking Owen up from school side by side. The first thing she said to me, after those 4 weeks, was, "I don't know if I trust you, but I still see the man I married. Somewhere in there." And that was enough. Not forgiveness, not closure, but space. A crack of light. I kept going to therapy, week after week. I started unpacking the reasons why I built that second life in the first place. Not to blame anyone, not to justify it, but to understand it, because you can't change what you won't face. Eventually, I started writing again. This time, under my real name. Not fiction, not fantasy, just truths. Messy, uncomfortable truths about identity, shame, and what it means to live honestly. I submitted a short piece to a small journal, didn't think much of it. It got published, then another one. Then someone asked me to speak on a podcast, then a panel. And here I am, telling the story I spent 12 years trying to hide. not to be applauded, not to be pitied, but because someone out there is probably living with a secret, a quiet second life, a mask they can't take off. And I need them to know this: you are not alone, and you don't have to disappear to be seen. We live in a world that rewards the curated version of ourselves. We post highlight reels, we play characters, we act like the people we think others want us to be. But there's a strange kind of freedom in stepping out of the shadow, even if it costs you everything fake you built. What's left behind is real, and that's worth something. So now I live differently, simpler, more present. I still write, still work, still wake up and make Owen's lunch and forget to take the trash out. But I do it as one person, one name, one life. Some days, I miss the rush, the mystery, the control, but most days, I just feel grateful. Because I didn't lose myself. I finally found him. If you've made it this far, thank you. I don't take it lightly. It's not easy to listen to someone admit they lived a lie. But maybe something in this story sounded familiar. Maybe not the secret life, maybe not the fake name or the burner phone, but the feeling. That quiet voice inside that asks, is this really who I am? That ache you get at the end of the day when everything looks fine from the outside, but inside, something's missing. That mask you wear so long you forget what your own face looks like underneath. If you know that feeling even a little, then this story wasn't just mine, it's yours too. You don't have to build a second life to feel seen. You don't have to become someone else to matter. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up as exactly who you are: flawed, unsure, unfinished, and say, this is me. If you're holding something in, something you've never said out loud, try it, say it. Even if it's just in the comments, even if it's just a sentence. There's more room for you here than you think. And if you want to keep hearing stories like this, real ones, raw ones, the kind that don't always have clean endings, stick around. I've got more to tell. Subscribe if you want, or don't. But if this meant something to you, let me know. And if it reminded you of something you've lived through, or something you're still carrying, tell your story too. Someone out there might need to hear it. I sure did. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself, and maybe take off the mask. Just for a while.